Hi, I'm Alyssa from the blog harborhome32.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make a homemade bone broth in your Instant Pot. I discussed this in one of my earlier videos, but making your own homemade bone broth saves you so much money and it is so much healthier. Bone broth at the store is running right now to be about $3.50 for about 4 cups of bone broth. And that's the organic bone broth from Target. And usually recipes call for about 8 cups of bone broth, which means you would have to buy 2 of those containers, equaling about $8 for you to have bone broth. Now, when you make it at home, it's basically free. It is like a free meal. If you buy chicken or any other meat that has bones in them, all you have to do is to save those bones in a freezer bag, and then when you have enough of them, pull them out and make bone broth out of them with water and apple cider vinegar. Those are the only ingredients that you need. So really, it's a no-brainer as far as cost goes. Now, health-wise, like most things, if you make them yourself at home, it is most likely gonna be healthier. When you make bone broth at home, you get the nice gelatinous consistency that you're looking for. The gelatinous consistency you'll see in a video that I'll overlay here is, it looks like gelatin. It looks like a bunch of jello, essentially. The gelatinous consistency means that you have extracted all of the nutrients out of the bones. You have extracted the protein, the healthy fats, the collagen, all of the macronutrients that are in those bones you will get when you extract them through the process of making your own homemade bone broth. When you buy it at the store, you are essentially just getting really foggy chicken broth. You don't get that gelatinous consistency that you would when you make it at home. This is simply because when you mass produce something and package it, the quality tends to go down. Now this isn't the case with everything, so don't hear me saying everything mass produced is bad. I'm just saying that with something like bone broth, just purely by the fact that you're trying to make a bunch of bone broth, package it, and send it out to the stores, you are not, that process, you are not getting a nice gelatinous consistency in the bone broth. Now you may be wondering, how do you get these bones that you speak of? Well, you can buy your cuts of meat with the bones in them. So if you buy whole chickens, you save the bones from the whole chickens, or even a rotisserie chicken. I do that a lot. I'll buy a rotisserie chicken from the store and just save all of the bones in a freezer bag. Or if you buy ribs, save the rib bones. Or if you buy a pork chop with a bone in them, save the pork bone, or a ham bone. There are so many different cuts of meat that are out there that do still have the bones in them. If you save them, put them in a freezer bag, and then you can make your own homemade bone broth. Really simple, and like I said before, free. All right, well, now that I've convinced you to make your own homemade bone broth, yes, now let me show you how to do it. It's so simple. So this process only has 3 ingredients. I use an Instant Pot right here. It's a big old thing. If you don't have an Instant Pot, you can make this on the stove. You just need a big soup kettle or a big stock pot, they're called, and you will do the same process, but you will just cook it over 24 hours versus this process. It cooks in about 6 hours, and then you can let it sit for an additional, however many hours in the warmer to continue to extract all of those good nutrients. So let's get started. So, like I mentioned, I've saved all of my chicken bones from the various meats that we've had over the last few weeks, and I have one big gallon-sized freezer bag full of bones and then a little bit extra here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all these bones in the Instant Pot, splash a little bit of apple cider vinegar over the top of it. That helps to extract all of the nutrients, and then top it off with water. Fill it all the way up to the top of the bones with water, and then cook it. Now, as you can see, the bones are pretty much submerged in the water, and I have just a little bit of bone sticking up over the top. That's about what you want. And I think this has probably reached the max line in my Instant Pot, so this is gonna be perfect. I'll probably get a whole gallon plus a little extra out of here. So how you are going to cook this is in your Instant Pot, you are going to put the lid on first, and then you want the valve to be on sealing, so you don't want any air escaping during this cooking process. And then you're gonna press the soup bone or soup broth function on your pot and have it on low pressure. The total amount of time that you want to cook this in your Instant Pot is 6 hours. So typically what I do is two different increments of 3 hours. So 3 hours, the timer will go off after 3 hours. I'll come back, set it for another 3 hours, and then when the 3 hours is done, it's the second 3 hours, it sits in the Instant Pot on the keep warm function. Now the reason I do that is because sometimes I don't start this bone broth until, you know, halfway through the day or even in the evening, and so I don't want it to cook too long while I'm like sleeping or something. And so what I usually will do is just set it for 3 hours. If it's, you know, if I'm going to bed by the time that 3 hours is done, I'll just leave it in the keep warm function, set it for another 3 hours in the morning, and then, you know, it'll finish partway through the day the next day. But today it's about 2 o'clock, I'm home. What I'll probably do is just cook it for 3 hours. When the timer goes off, set it for another 3 hours, and then it'll be done by 8 o'clock this evening. I'll leave it in the keep warm function overnight so that I get more nutrients out of the bones, and then tomorrow I will come back, take it out of the pot, strain it off, and then we'll have bone broth. So that is how you do it. So here, I'll do a quick little tutorial. I had this set for 4 hours, so I'm going to bump it back down to 3. Okay, so there you go, 3 hours. The timer will go off as soon as it turns on, and I have the little keep warm button turned on, so it'll keep warm if I can't get to it. Okay, so it is the next day, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I cooked my bone broth for 6 hours in the Instant Pot, and then it sat overnight on the warm feature. Now mine did turn off in the middle of the night, but it still keeps pretty warm because it just cooked so much. And then in the morning, this morning, I turned it back on to the keep warm feature because I knew I couldn't get to the broth to strain it with all that I had going on today. So it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're gonna strain off the bone broth. Now to do this, I use a stock pot. This thing, it's got a big mesh or a big strainer. I'll pour it all into there, and then I'm gonna use a fine mesh strainer to strain out the little tiny pieces when I put it into my big mason jars. I use a half-gallon size mason jars, and like I said, I'll probably get a whole gallon out of this. So I've got 2 of them here, and then I also have a funnel, which just makes it so much easier to get into the jar. So I'll show you what to do. So as you can see, these are all the chicken bones that are left from, yeah, these are all the chicken bones that we cooked up and extracted the nutrients. And look how soft they are. They just fall apart in your hands. Let's see, here's a pretty big, this is a rib bone. And it just snaps right in half. Super, super moist. All the good nutrients just out of there, gotten out of there. So there you have it. That is how you strain off bone broth from the pot in the Instant Pot. Now, you can already see how good this is. You see that fat line right there that's forming? That's gonna be like the top, that's like the top layer of fat, and then everything below this is gonna turn into gelatinous, the gelatinous consistency that I talked about. I'll show you another, once I have this cooled and chilled in the refrigerator for a little while, I'll show you what it looks like. I usually let mine, because these are still pretty hot, they came right out of the Instant Pot, I am gonna let these cool on the counter for a little bit. Just gonna put the lid on top, not screw it all the way. So, just so it can, yeah, have a chance to cool. But there you go. I got a gallon and a pint. I think this is a pint. Maybe it's a quart. That's probably a quart. Oh, I'm really bad at that kind of stuff. But I got more than a gallon, as you can see, out of those bones that I had saved with just a little apple cider vinegar and some water. So yeah, I've got a free meal or two or more, depending on how we use this, out of those bones that we made. So I hope you guys can see how great of a process this is, how good of a thing it is to get a free meal out of just buying chicken or other cuts of meat with bones in them, saving the bones, making your own homemade bone broth, and you'll reap so many benefits from this. It'll be so much healthier than the bone broth that you buy at the store. There's so many benefits to bone broth, like joint health, gut health. Also, it has tons of good protein, tons of good collagen. And collagen isn't just good for your hair, skin, and nails. It's good for your joints and for many other things in your body. And then you also just get a lot of really good protein, good fats, good whole natural fats, which is so important in our nutrition. So I hope I've convinced you guys this is a pretty great way to save some money and make some really healthy food in your own kitchen. Please let me know if you have any questions about this process. I'd love to answer them. I've been doing this for about 2 years in my own kitchen, so I've got some experience in it. If you are in need of some of this equipment like the Instant Pot or a mesh strainer or a big stock pot, I have an Amazon shop that I will link below for you. I also have made a quick checklist for you if you are someone that is starting out on this whole food kitchen concept. Some of the essentials that I recommend for a from scratch kitchen. So I'll link that free resource for you down below too. Oh, I did want to mention one thing too. Another reason why I love doing this whole process is that these bones here can be composted. So I just love the feeling of using as much of this one thing as possible. And so we take these bones out back and we put them in our compost pile in our backyard. So it'll add great nutrients to our soil and therefore fertilize our garden to then grow more amazing food. It's just crazy. All I'm learning about this process, it's really amazing. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're brand new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button for upcoming videos on whole food cooking, simple and natural living, and hospitality. Thanks so much for ringing the doorbell at 32 Haverhill. Bye!